So hey YouTube, welcome back, or hello for the first time. It might be welcome back because I have climbed over 100 subscribers. It's not like I'm Martha Stewart or Nicki Minaj or Swiftie or anything, but 100 and, I think it was 103 last time I checked, and so thank you for that. With this kind of popularity, I'm kind of thinking about doing an OnlyFans page. If leave me some comments down below if you'll follow me over to OnlyFans. I hear that's quite lucrative. So today is kind of a melancholy ride along. We are in my son's 2010 JKU 4-door Wrangler, and it is on the auction block. I want to put a link to the Auto Trader ad in the description. If there's still a link down there and it says it's available in the description, then it's available. It's currently mid-July 2024. So because this is for sale, you're not going to see a lot of cool off-road video. I'm going to try to cut in some of our previous adventures. Not real high res, but you'll get the idea. I don't want to have to wash it again, and I don't want to take it off road and mess it up. So we're gonna be a pavement princess today. Not a bad night in Atlanta. It is mid-July. It's 83 outside, and the humidity is fairly low. So if my math is correct, it's 83 outside, which is probably about 25 Celsius, and the humidity is low, which is unusual for us in July. So everyone knows the Jeep. When you say the word Jeep, everyone thinks of a short wheelbase 4x4 and a hell of a good time. I think you'd probably have to be a sociopath or a Democrat to have Compass or Liberty in your mind. The civilian Jeep, or CJ, had a pretty long run from 1945 until 1985. So I've owned several flat fender Jeeps, several CJ2As, a CJ3B. I never actually owned a CJ5 or a CJ7, which was kind of the Jeep when I was in my formative years. So when Chrysler bought the Jeep brand, they made it less utilitarian, more comfortable, and more importantly, more stable. Having driven a 1979-ish CJ5 around 285 in Atlanta, man, that thing was a wobbly death trap above about 50 miles an hour. Unfortunately, that rollover reputation lives with it today. Jeeps are very stable, everything considered, but it's not a Honda Accord. You shouldn't drive it like that. I'm going to be making a video on my old 88 YJ, so be on the lookout for that. So this is the, I think it's the third generation Wrangler, YJ, TJ, JK, yep. So it's the third generation Wrangler. It ran from 2007 on an 11-year run to 2018. I'm technically driving a 4-door JKU, but I'm going to use the terms JK and JKU interchangeably throughout this. I've never actually driven a 2-door JK. This thing was introduced in 2006 at the North American Auto Show. The then CEO of Chrysler, a guy named Tom Lasorda, not Tommy Lasorda, being a longtime Braves fan, Tommy Lasorda is persona non grata. So then CEO Tom Lasorda drove the JK up a set of steps and through a plate glass window. And I love a big entrance, so I'm okay with it. Unfortunately, 2007 to 2010 were a very dark time in the Wrangler history. That Panther Cologne down at HQ thought that a 2-wheel drive Wrangler would be a cute idea. They didn't sell many, and the 2-wheel drive Wrangler, as well as that Panther Cologne, didn't make it to 2011. May God have mercy on his soul. These days, 3/4 of all Wranglers sold are 4-door Wranglers. The Wrangler comes in 3 basic models, or at least the JK comes in 3 basic models. For the most part, the Sport is the base model. The Sahara, which my '88 Wrangler is the luxury model. So over the years, Jeep has come out with a bunch of special edition packages. They're really just sticker and or paint packages on either the Sport model or the Sahara. There are so many special editions out there. I'm going to have to read them to you, and I'll try to put pictures up over the top. Since Jeep started in 1941, there was, of course, the 2011 70th anniversary edition, the 2016 75th anniversary, which of course would make the 2021 the 80th anniversary edition. I had a buddy with a 1979 CJ5, and it was the silver anniversary edition of just the CJ5, which started in 79-54. There's also been the Islander edition, Rocky Mountain edition, which I think was specific to Canada. Look at that whole deer family. I don't know if y'all saw that or not. There's a herd of deer. A Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 or something edition, the Polar edition, the Altitude edition, Backcountry edition, Black Bear edition, and the absolutely horrible Dragon edition. That Dragon edition was brutal. Starting with the TJ, you've also got the Rubicon edition, which is what this is, and it was considered the trail-ready version from Jeep. It has Dana 44 axles, it has front and rear electric lockers from the factory, it has a sway bar disconnect, it came with larger tires. It also came with the Rock Track transfer case with a 4-to-1 low-range ratio. So there's kind of 2 schools of thought. If you're gonna build a crazy Jeep with an LS swap and really all you're doing is buying a Jeep tub, start with a 2-wheel drive if you can find one, because they're cheap, and then build it from there. But if you want to build a Jeep and still have a Jeep, start with the Rubicon edition, which is what I did. So the JK was initially offered with 2 different engines. The 3.8, which this has, 3.8 petrol or gasoline engine, and I think it was a 2.8 liter diesel. I'll put it on the screen. The diesel was only offered overseas. Having a diesel Range Rover now, I really wish that they would, that we had more diesels in the U.S. In 2012, they swapped out the 3.8 for the 3.6 Pentastar, which is a great engine. The early versions of this seem to have problems with the head gasket, but now they're just a great engine. Between the Wrangler and the Pentastar, it was a home run for Jeep. I purchased this in March of 2015, a full 2 years before my son could drive, but it's a stick. He had to learn how to drive a stick. This is actually a great vehicle to learn how to drive a stick on. If you put it in that 4-to-1 low range, you can't stall it. Now, you got to be on gravel or dirt because it is going to bind. You can't make sharp turns, but it is, in terms of learning how to shift, if you can't stall, it helps a lot. So I think I mentioned I traded my 1964 CJ3B. It was also blue. Traded it in on this, and this has been more practical. So it was a great high school, great college car. Unfortunately, you grow up and you get a job, and so he has his big boy job as a tax accountant up in Nashville. He's living and working in downtown Nashville, and a ragtop is not ideal in that situation. But thankfully, because of that, you get to ride along with me in the wind blowing through this luxurious Maine. Told you that the JK has the flip top Sunrider top. It basically, it hinges almost right above the sound bar and uncovers the driver. It sort of flaps on the back passengers, so it's not ideal, but most of the time there's just people in the front anyway. So getting the full top down really isn't that big of a deal. You have to unzip the back windows, the back quarter panels, and you just throw them in the trunk, and the top flips down. Getting the top back up is a little bit difficult on the four-door. It's a pretty heavy top, so it's really it's much easier with two people. So there's a lot of people that say that this is underpowered, but I've never really had a big issue with it. Over time, it has shown itself to be a bulletproof engine. It'll run forever. I think there's some Chrysler Town and Countries out there with 300,000 or 400,000 miles on them, driven by carpool moms. So we're going to go ahead and take it on the highway, let you see what it's like at high speeds. We're starting from a dead stop. I'm not going to try to kill it. We got cars around us. So first gear about 20, about 35, coming out of second gear, and we are up on the car ahead of us. It's a Mercedes GL 450. It's not like it's leaving us in the dust. So we're into fourth gear, going about 60. Fifth gear going 70, and we're still plenty stable. So this is, we're at 80 miles an hour. Luckily the speed limit here is 70 miles an hour. But you can see, stable as it can be. So all the moms out there that are worried about the Jeeps, now, you know, you got a teenage kid driving it, they're all 10 foot tall and bulletproof. But if you do it right and you have a little bit of sense, these things are fine. With the long wheelbase being 3.5 inches wider, it is plenty stable. So I'm hoping you heard most of that. We topped out at a little over 80. Not sure I've ever used this little stick. Normally what I do, little bonnet stick or whatever it's called, I just flip it up against the windshield. So this is the 3.8 liter V6. It was developed for the Dodge Viper program. There's not a lot of people that know that because, well, frankly, because it's a lie.
What do you expect him to say? He's a liar.
It was developed for the Chrysler Town and Country minivans and stuck into the JK from its inception in 2007 up to, I think, 2012. They swapped it out for the 3.6 Pentastar, which is a smaller engine but pumps out more horsepower. This one only produces a measly 202 horsepower and 237 pound-feet of torques. It's mated to a Chrysler NSG 370 6-speed manual transmission, and this is Jeep's first 6-speed transmission. So I have driven everything in a Jeep from a 3-speed stick to now a 6-speed stick. There's no start-stop on this, no auto start-stop on this, but of course it's a manual, so that would be weird anyway. It's old enough that it still has a dipstick to check the engine oil, which I like. So people dog this, and trust me, you're not going to win a drag race against a Hellcat by any means. But this thing will cruise along at 80 miles an hour, even with the 35-inch tires, just fine. Now, one thing you got to realize, though, is that I'm coming from a 4.2 carbureted, and that thing, the old 258 in the YJ, pumped out an amazing 112 horsepower. It was a very torquey engine, but it you almost had to try to get a speeding ticket. Under here you can see the dual ARB air compressor. We don't use it much, but when we do need it, it's very handy to have. I think those things run about $600. They're not cheap out of Australia. You can also see the sPod relay center. They have a newer looking one today, but this was the current one in 2015 when I built it. The thing I like about the sPod is it keeps all your wiring nice and neat. It's pretty much one cable, one wire in for power, and then you've got a cable going up to all your switches, and then this is your power out going to your various accessories. If you've watched any of my other videos, same thing here. I put the painter's tape when I put the air filter in. Just fill it up. This is a new one, so this went in September of last year. It went in at 155K. We're at about 161 now, so replace it at either 170 or the next year. The 3.8 has the old spin-on oil filter. So it is not as clean to change the oil as the 3.6. We were chasing a bit of an electrical gremlin where we couldn't get this thing to start. It ended up being operator error, but so the alternator, the starter, and the battery are all less than a year old. Jeep, in their infinite wisdom, also runs absolutely every bit of electricity in the truck through this. This is called the TIPM, Totally Integrated Power Module. These things are like $1,500 if you can find them. This one's is a little bit less than a year old. So all that was changed, and it turns out that it was kind of a stupid problem. I'm not even going to admit what the issue was. Hey, look at that. We were on gravel for a second. Of course, this has the classic 7-slot grill going all the way back to the CJ2 or CJ2A. The Willis MB had a 9-slot grill, oddly enough, and they dropped it back to 7. And also the MB had bucket headlights that were inside the grill. You could rotate them backwards up to where the light was shining in the engine bay, so you could work on the engine at night. The CJ ran until 1985. There was no 86 short wheelbase Jeep. In 87, they came out with the square headlight YJ Wrangler. And of course, we've got the 88 that I'm going to be doing a video on, so keep an eye out for that. In 96, the TJ came out. They went back to the round headlights that had been there for decades in the CJ. Of course, being a YJ family, we believe that no lights matter until square lights matter. In the CJ and the YJ, the blinkers were in the grill. In the TJ, they were brought out to the fenders. The JK brought them back into the grill. Now I'm pretty sure the JL has moved them back out to the fenders. I added the Rock Slide Engineering Bumper. It's all aluminum, which cost about 3 times as much, but it saved at least half the weight. You can see it's got the bull bar, and it's also got a little light up underneath for winching in the dark, but as I look at it now, it looks like that is not working. This winch was a little bit of a compromise. Back then, the synthetic line had kind of just come out. It was a novelty. It weighed much less. It was advertised as being much safer, and so rather than opting for a worn steel, I could get this Quadratec synthetic cheaper. If you want a winch to work every time, buy a worn. And that's the thing about winches, is you will go along, and unless you're doing, absolutely heavy wheeling every weekend, you use your winch once every 6 months, once every year. And if you want to pop that switch and have your winch work, buy a worn. This Quadratec winch is okay. It is synthetic. It's 12,500 pounds, and probably 60% of the time it works every time.
They've done studies, 60% of the time it works every time.
If I was younger and still wheeling and keeping it, I would switch a worn back in there. You can see with the winch bumper, this winch is mounted very low. Not only does that help with the center of gravity, the winch actually sits between the frame rails, but it also helps keep the airflow to the radiator unfettered. Up on the windshield, we have the larger KCs. They are wired into the zombie light switch. I've seen folks complain about the rubber hood latches. I've never had a problem with it, either that or I've never noticed it, but they complain about hood flutter at speed, and it's never affected me. So I couldn't tell you who made these, the rock sliders. There was a compromise too. They fold up, and they're supposed to protect the rocker panel. They fold down, and their seats, they've been folded down for years, and they're just kind of rusted in place. We've got the BestTop on here, and it's got the dark tinted back windows. This is, I think this is about the highest range BestTop they make. It is, I think it's probably better, quieter, everything than the OEM. We're running 35 by 12.5 R17 Mastercraft Corsair MXTs. These have been good tires. They're reasonably quiet on the highway, and they've got nice lugs for off-roading. This is our second set that we've had on here, and the first set did great. I think it went 60,000 miles or more. They are mounted to American Racing ATX. I think these might be called Ravine wheels, and of course they're fake beadlock. Real beadlocks are illegal in Georgia as well as most other states. Let's talk about off-road wheels and tires for a second. You can tell the difference between a rig that was built for off-roading and one that was built for mall crawling. This is a 12.5 inch wide tire, and I think it's an 8.5 inch wide rim. What that does is it causes the sidewall to balloon out. But when you're on the trail and stuff, you're rubbing here, and you're not getting wood and crap down in here busting the bead. So mall crawlers, they'll have a 12.5 inch wide wheel and a 12.5 inch wide tire, and the sidewalls almost kind of come out to the rim, and so the tread is narrower than either narrower or the same size as the wheel. So we built this for off-roading. We're trying to protect the bead, because when we're running low air pressure, we don't want a stick getting jammed up in there, popping the bead. Bunch of mud, bunch of gook gets down in there, and we have a bad day. While we're back here, we'll talk about the Atlas swing away tire carrier. Of course, it's got enough ass to hold up the big giant spare. It's important, if you're truly going to take it off road, you should have 5 tires. The spare should be about the same size. You can tell a mall crawler, they've got 4 giant tires and either no spare, or they've got the original spare on the back. If you were off-road, that would destroy your running gear. It also has the off-road bumper jack. This is not the High Lift brand. It has worked well. We use it for, obviously lifting the Jeep off-road. We've changed tires on the side of the trail. You can reverse it and use it as a come-along. I think we've moved trees out of the way with it. Just overall tool that you got to have. Now this thing, because this is a heavy tire, it latches, it's secure, but swing away, and you can see that we've got room for 2 jerry cans. That's actually a fake jerry can. It is it's a toolbox in there. I'm not going to take it out because it's a little bit of a pain, but that is empty. You open it up. It's got a couple of drawers and a larger space. You can put your recovery shackles. You can put a tree saver in there, and possibly your what's it called? These zippers are, I think they're easier and better than the OEM. If you see someone with a giant tire hanging off the back gate, look to see if they've upgraded the hinges. These are not upgraded, don't need to, because we've got the swing away. The JKs have a tremendous amount of trunk space. My YJ, when both seats were in the back, I think it had about 8 or 10 inches of room back there. And you can see this is a full-size boot, full-size trunk. Can never be too safe. Got the fire extinguisher up there when we're out on the trails. We also carry a roll of trash bags, picking up trash. Unfortunately, not everybody is as conscientious as they should be. And, of course, a roll of toilet paper. If you saw the 2013 Jeep Grand Cherokee review, same Quadratec pan for the back. It really helps keep your carpet in decent shape. Under here, we've got our tools. Still got some off-road. We've got a tree recovery and one very rusty snatch block. Here's the tools. It's probably just taking up space at this point, but there's no way that the stock jack would ever lift anything. You can see that the back seats fold 60-40, and it is reasonably flat. Pretty good cargo area back there, especially for a Jeep. So for this week's episode of Fat Man in the Back, you can see there's a half decent bit of knee space in here. It's a little bit of head space. This actually works better if it's either folded all the way closed or all the way open. With this, you get a little bit of flapping on your back passenger. So with this, it's a little bit embarrassing, but I can't buckle this, which is why it's called Fat Man in the Back. But in 2015, I didn't weigh this much, and I couldn't buckle it comfortably then either. So to me, they need to be just a little bit longer. You do have a couple of cup holders, and the windows are controlled in the center as they are in the front. Soundbar, interior lighting. You'll also notice, I don't know if you can see on the other side of this, but there is nothing to hold these doors open. It's just a strap to keep them from blowing all the way open. That's because these do come off. There's a little connector that you unplug, and all four doors come off. I'll put a picture. I'm not gonna put the Safari doors on right now. All right. So this week, not only do we have Fat Man in the Back, but we got Fat Man climbing in a Jeep. Doors are fairly Spartan. Again, you can take them off. You're not going to win any kind of design competition. The thing that I really like about this over the YJ is it does have ducting in the dash. That is key. Air conditioning is awfully nice when you're off-road. Oh, yeah. All right. I like the layout of the dash. It's big. It's easy to read. It doesn't have a bunch of information that you don't need. It does have everything that you do need. Compass, which is kind of nice, and exterior temperature. I know the gate's open. Moving across, we got our friends from A-Tach again. I'm not sponsored or anything, but I've bought an awful lot from them. So if they want to slide me one or two, it wouldn't kill me. Here's our sPod, turning on the zombie lights. It is right above the mirror. Coming across, we've got a switch for rock lights. We'll see those in a minute. We've got zombie lights. We've got the underbody trail repair light. Whenever you break down, it's always nighttime, and you always have no light underneath there. So that's mounted up under the Jeep. Sheds light to where you can work on just about anything underneath there. Turn on the ARB compressor from here. And we also have the backup lights. This one does not have the Uconnect. This is the base radio that came in the early JKs. Even though it says Uconnect, when you push it, it says not equipped with Uconnect phone. So like all Jeeps, the windows are controlled up here. So rear window, front windows. Again, ducting in the dash, which is kind of nice, and big knobs for the climate control. Down here at the bottom, we've got the switches. This disconnects. There's an electronic disconnect for the sway bar, which is kind of nice. I can't tell you how long I have spent after coming off the trail trying to get the old cotter pin ones to work. Axle lock, you push it down once. If you push it down once, you see that the rear locks. Push it a second time, and front and rear lock. There is no front only. And then if you push it up, they turn off. course, the hazards or the four-way flashers and traction control. So this I like, some people may not. I call it the millennial anti-theft device. It's amazing how many kids can't drive a stick. I think every American male over the age of about 10 should know how to drive a stick. The transfer case is down here in neutral, and you can see that we've got 2 high, 4 high. You can go into neutral for flat towing, and then 4 low. And don't take my word on the flat towing. I'm going to have to look that up. You can see that we have the Sunrider top open. It just flips up and goes on the back. Kind of convenient. So you can't really beat the seating position. I mean, you are sitting up pretty high. Of course, with a 4-inch lift, that doesn't hurt. Your feet are pretty much under. So we've got a fairly big rectangular windshield here, and I can see the corners. Now the fenders are a little bit more difficult, and it doesn't have great visibility out the back. This one doesn't have a reverse camera, and it doesn't have rear backup sensors. It's like driving a car. So if you're looking at buying a Jeep that somebody else has lifted, especially if they did it themselves, and I realize that I'm sitting in a Jeep that I lifted myself, if they got the geometry wrong, Jeeps suffer from what's called death wobble at high speed. So the geometry on this is correct. Sometimes it took some extra componentry, sometimes it took some extra money getting somebody else to help, but since my son was going to be driving this, I didn't want death wobble. When Lee Iacocca put the anti-sway bars in the Wrangler, made things much more stable, and it really helped with the cornering. You're still in a high center of gravity vehicle. You're not in a Porsche, you're not in a Corvette, so when you go to corner, in fact, you're not even in a Range Rover L405. When you go to corner, you need to realize that and drive like it. These seats aren't the most comfortable in the world. I mean, these seats are certainly more comfortable than an 88 YJ. They are not as comfortable by a mile to a Range Rover, but they're fine. I mean, I'm getting to the age now where a 4-hour trip in these, the wind noise and the road noise, even with the top up, isn't my favorite thing. I've gotten kind of old and cranky and soft. So I got to say, every time I drive this, I'm kind of reminded of how fun it is to drive a stick. It's 8:30 in the evening. Traffic has passed. I wouldn't want to drive this down into Buckhead or Atlanta and home again every day in Atlanta's famous stop and stop traffic. But if it's as a high school kid, as a college kid, as a spare toy, I think this thing's great. If I didn't have another Jeep taking up my garage space, I would hang on to it. So I hope you enjoyed riding along and watching the wind whip through what has to be the best hair in all the YouTube car channels. I would probably put Matt with High Peak Autos as number 2. But he uses a lot of product, and I think I get extra credit because I'm on natural. It's kind of the difference between a really great natural rack and a pretty good fake rack. If you learned something in this video, if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. Leave me some comments. I read them all, I respond to them all, and I appreciate them all. And to the 104 most discerning people on the face of the earth, really, I think it's probably the top 104 in the known universe. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. It kind of blows my mind, honestly. I enjoy watching car videos, and apparently I like making car videos too. So I think my time's about up. I thank you for yours, and have a good week, and I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy, YouTube.